Hi, my name is Francisco Aragon, and I'm happy to be doing this reading for the Poets House Hard Hat series. This is my hard hat, also indication of where I'm from, if you could recognize the logo on the hat. I'm going to read a poem. I'm going to start by reading a poem by a poet who I've known for many years. Her name is Adela Najarro. Like myself, she is of Nicaraguan descent. And she recently just published a chapbook of poetry called Volcanic Interruptions, which is a collaboration with her friend, the visual artist, Janet Trenchard. What Adela did was that she sent the artist 8 poems, and then the artist produced 8 companion pieces to her poems. So the name of the poem is Volcanic Poetics. Just a few terms here. There's a term called Nica, which is a term that people use to describe people from Nicaragua. There's also a reference made to a dictator, and that's an allusion to the dictator who ruled Nicaragua for many years. In fact, the family did. The Somoza clan, the Somoza dynasty ruled Nicaragua for many years. There's also a mention to exteriorismo, which was a school of poetry that was prevalent after the revolution, whose champion was the poet Ernesto Cardenal. Here we go. Volcanic Poetics. After the soldiers left bullet holes and torn mattresses, after iguanas ran off with the sun, after pericos emerged violently squawking, after the dictator collected music boxes and skulls, a song rose from the stink of a river festering yellow mud, where one eye of a crocodile watched you, I, we, todos break bones, break bodies. I want to tell you about after, how bones knit, courage rises, and we stave off despair. Once in that country filled with mango trees, where sharks live in fresh water, where monkeys are kept on leashes, where the ice cream is salty, El Ministro de Cultura issued a call to language as action, a call to write poems about ordinary objects, and exteriorismo began stirring a pot of beans, adding oil and then leftover rice to make gallo pinto, a plain dish that Danny likes, a child, our child, here in the States with Nica blood. Poems are his legacy, along with a lava-filled past that percolated a revolution of sound, vida, and ranas, ranitas, little froggies on a farm on the road to Momotombo. My mother's words explode volcanic vowels. Ay, como queman. The slow burn down the side of a mountain with its top blown off. Nature on fire. Poetry, a living thing. That's Adela Najarro from Volcanic Interruptions. This chapbook is just out, so get your copy today. as I mentioned earlier about Poets House, I've been a long time admirer of Poets House. I remember the previous iteration of Poets House on Spring Street, and I used to go when I could to go hear their showcase, and not hear their showcase, attend their showcase where they would showcase all the small press titles that were published in any one given calendar year. In a previous life, I was the publisher of a small press called Momotombo Press, Momotombo being the name of the volcano in Nicaragua. And the book I want to read from now is called After Rubén, and you can see on the cover that is actually a profile of Momotombo volcano. The title of the book is a reference to the Nicaraguan poet Rubén Darío. I'm going to read 3 pieces from this book, and I should mention that this, in many respects, is a pandemic book because it dropped in May of 2020, and so I welcome opportunities to read from it. I'm going to start with the very first poem in the book, which functions as a kind of overture in that there are elements in the poem. It's a relatively brief poem. There are elements in the poem that get taken up later on throughout the collection. It's a poem whose genesis was a poetry workshop with the poet Cynthia Cruz. She had us do these exercises that would result in what she called a smash sonnet. Mine is titled 2012, as in the year 2012. 24th and Mission BART station, laundry hamper, widescreen television, DuPont circle, cassette of my sister's voice, cassette of my father's, courthouse metro, torn photograph of my abuelo, untitled by Malaquias Montoya, smartphone, theater programs, my father's gold watch, boxed up photographs, laptop, Fair Oaks, the Mission, Noe Valley, skateboard, Mandorla, the New Yorker, Venus in Fur, Sex with Strangers, a few DVDs, Azul, Palabra. I was a short, skinny boy, midnight in Paris, Yuba, Poppy, depression. My vocabulary did this to me. That last reference, my vocabulary did this to me, is the book that was published by University of California Press, which collected all the poems by Jack Spicer. That's the allusion there. In fact, the title of the book is actually an allusion to After Lorca, which is one of my favorite books by Jack Spicer. The next piece I want to read also takes inspiration from another text. The title of the poem is called Poem Beginning with a Fragment of Andres Montoya. Andres Montoya, the late Andres Montoya, was a Chicano poet from Fresno, California, who published a beautiful book of poems in 1999 called The Ice Worker Sings. He subsequently, there was a posthumous volume of his work published by Bilingual Press and Letras Latinas called A Jury of Trees. And there's a poem in that book that I'm going to quote as the first line of this poem. And the reason why I'm quoting it is because it also invokes the poet Rubén Darío. And it's a poem about community in that I use that first line to unleash a meditation on a gathering that took place also in the year 2012 when I was in community with some other Latinx poets in Austin, Texas. And the poem is dedicated to the Salvadoran American poet Leticia Hernandez Linares. And the poem ends with these two poets sort of recognizing each other as being of shared Central American heritage. There are a couple of snippets of Spanish in the poem, and those are actually fragments of Rubén Darío's poetry. Poem beginning with a fragment of Andrés Montoya. The taco vendor reciting Darío in a moment of passion. I swear it was him that night, 2012, late July. We were hoofing it down Guadalupe, looking for a dive. How many were we? And who? He'd hauled his camión from Fresno to Austin, swapping one heat for another. La princesa está triste. ¿Qué tendrá la princesa? Was it you, Leti, gritando, let's do hole in the wall? Or is it the local with that taco truck in the back? I swear it was him that night, 2012, late July. We were seated around 2, 3 mesas in the open air, talking shop. Era un aire suave de pausados giros. You're from the mission? Yeah. ¿Y eres Nica? Sí. Qué cool. We were hoofing it down Guadalupe, looking for a dive, and found carne asada, barbacoa, carnitas, al pastor. For Leticia Hernandez Linares. And I'll close with a poem set in my hometown, San Francisco, where I was born and raised in the city itself. And there's a reference to Mission Dolores. I'll also mention that Dolores is my mother's name, my late mother. And there's a reference to perhaps one of San Francisco's most emblematic skyscrapers. Growing up, I knew it as the Pyramid. It used to be, there was a time when it was San Francisco's tallest building. It isn't any longer by a long shot. But there's a patch of Dolores Park, not very far from where I grew up, that has a breathtaking view of downtown San Francisco. And that's sort of what this poem invokes. Postcard. Blue sky, the Bay Bridge from afar, arcing like a bow to Treasure Island, city skyline, scoring a view tourists could buy at Fisherman's Wharf. But for the smudge, clouding the tip of the pyramid, panels deflecting the sun glint through, as if a beacon shrouded in fog were blinking a code to this green slope park named after a mission. Dolores, Dolores. It simmers on my tongue, is pains in Spanish, is her name. And beyond the grass, the dark-haired woman crouching in the sand, saying to a small boy, "Sácate los dedos de la boca. Take your fingers out of your mouth." Thank you for spending this time with me. And again, all the best to Poets House, and I'm happy to spend this time with you. Thank you.